Hi everyone, it's Sherry from Our Life Homeschooling. I want to talk to you today about how we put together our kids' end of the year homeschool portfolios. If this is your first time on my channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Sherry. I'm a homeschooling mom to 10 kids. Our oldest is graduated. We have 7 that are still in school, 10th, 9th, 7th, 5th, 3rd, 1st, and kindergarten. And then we have a 2-year-old and a 13-month-old. I'm a former public school teacher turned homeschool mom. We're finishing up our 14th year of homeschooling, and I love coming on here every week, coming alongside you as the homeschool mom, encouraging you, challenging you, helping you stay the course in this incredible work that you're doing, raising the next generation. Every year we put together a homeschool portfolio. Now this is required in our state, but this is something I would do even if it wasn't required. And I want to start first of all by telling you that what I'm sharing today is not legal advice. You as the parent are ultimately responsible to make sure you know and follow the law. I'm just sharing with you what we've been doing in our 14 years of homeschooling and how it's looked for us when we put together our end of year portfolios. Now, some of the information I'm going to be sharing is specific to our state. I'm just going to briefly share about Pennsylvania. We're from Pennsylvania. But this is going to be time-stamped, so if you want to just scoot past that spot for those of you that are out of state or out of country and move on. Again, even if it wasn't required in our state, I would put together a portfolio for my kids. It's just really nice for them to have a snapshot of their year, of what they did, some of the artwork, some of the places they've been, something to look back on. It's kind of like a picture album where they can just look back and remember things. And my kids, when they look back at their portfolios, they're always surprised. They've forgotten some of the things they've done. And then they look through and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot we did this. And remember when we did that? So a portfolio is really, really nice to have. If you're not sure what's required by law in your state, head over to hslda.org. I will link it below. You can look under the legal tab on there and find your state. It just shows a map. Find your state, click on your state, and it will just lay out specifically everything that's required for you by law. If you go on there, you'll see that Pennsylvania, I think Pennsylvania, New York, and Massachusetts are the red states. They're the hardest states to homeschool in, or they have the most requirements. Having said that, I don't think it's hard to homeschool in Pennsylvania. There are a few more restrictions. It's not like there's nothing, there's no requirements. But they're minimal, and once you do them for the first year, you realize it's really not that much. I'm going to keep this section of the video about Pennsylvania really brief. Again, you're responsible to go on and find out exactly what's required of you. In Pennsylvania, you need to file an affidavit and objectives if you're homeschooling under the homeschool law. There's also the tutor law if you have a teacher's certificate, which makes you the evaluator. I homeschool under the tutor law. If you have a teaching certificate, you can do it under the tutor law. There's very little requirements. But most people homeschool under the homeschool law, and for this you need to turn in an affidavit, objectives, and a portfolio, and you need to have an evaluator sign off on your portfolio. In a portfolio, you need to have a record of completing 180 days. You need to have a book list, which shows all of the curriculum that you've used for the year, also all the books that you've read to your kids or that they've read or that they've listened to. You need to have a sample of work from each subject listed under the law. And this needs to just show progress. That's the only requirement. So if you have just a beginning, middle, and end sample, that's sufficient. And then finally, in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grades, you need to have state testing. You need to have results of the state testing from that year. And those aren't easy to do. There's online testing. You can ask your evaluator. I personally, if you're looking for an evaluator, I personally would choose one that is requiring nothing more than what's listed in the law. So if you have an evaluator that's telling you that your child should be doing such and such by a certain grade, or that they should have this standard met or that thing done, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Some people really like having an evaluator that just kind of coaches them and guides them along and just helps them get better at what they're doing. But their job is only to evaluate you based on what's required in the law. And what's required in the law is just that you show progress in each subject. So if I were picking an evaluator, I would pick one that was requiring the least amount, that was only looking for what's in the law. One thing I would recommend is that you find an evaluator as soon as possible, because you want to connect with your evaluator and ask them, what are you looking for? When you sit down for our evaluation, what do you want to see? I want to know exactly what you want to see so that there's no surprises. And the sooner you can find an evaluator and ask her this question, that's going to give you peace of mind to know what you should be doing and what you should be putting together in their portfolio. There's so many benefits to having a portfolio. The first one, obviously, is for the kids. They love looking back at it. And I think it surprises them when they look back at a portfolio from last year and see how much progress they've made. Even in the current year, looking back at the sample of work from the beginning of year and then seeing where they are now, they can just see improvements in handwriting, or they can tell that they've really come far from just doing their addition facts to now doing multiplication tables. And it just gives them confidence. I like doing it for them to be proud of their work. And it also helps them to be able to tell other people, you know, what are you doing in school these days? And they can just kind of rattle it off because they've looked through it and it's so familiar to them, it's right in front of them. I love doing it for the kids. I also love doing it because it's something that's nice to show to friends, to grandparents. I've had friends come over that are interested in homeschooling, and I show them the kids' portfolios, and it just gives them a snapshot a little bit of what homeschooling looks like. And I think it's really been encouraging to some people and made them see that it's doable, that it's really a great lifestyle. If you have any family or friends that question your decision to homeschool, a portfolio is a wonderful thing to show them, just so that they also can get that look into your life and see that the kids are getting an excellent education. And not only is it a good education, but it's a great lifestyle for the kids. It's very individualistic, it's very child-centered. And I think the most important benefit really to doing a portfolio, surprisingly, is for you as the mom. As moms, we are hardest on ourselves, we question ourselves. Many times I've gotten to the end of the year and thought, did we really accomplish anything? What did we even get done this year? And then I look through our book list, and there's books that I read to them back in September or maybe over the summer, and I've totally forgotten about it. I've totally forgotten about field trips or places that we've gone. And putting together a portfolio not only makes me review and think through exactly everything we've done that year and get it written down. It's just a big encouragement to me to see where we've been and how far we've come. If you keep your portfolio very basic, it's something that you can take your time and put together throughout the year, or you can even do it in a day. I've done this. I've gotten to the very end of our school year, and in 1 or even 2 days, I'll have the kids draw their portfolio cover page. I will type up the front page, I'll get to that in a minute, and then we'll just put all their samples of work in, get out some of the flyers for some of the field trips that they've been on. It's something you can put together in a day if necessary. As I mentioned, I have a teaching certificate. I've done evaluations for some homeschool students. I've seen a lot of portfolios. Some people put a lot of work into it. It looks really amazing, and that's great if that's something that you like doing. For me, having 7 kids in school this year, we usually, with 10 kids, we usually have at least 5 to 7 that are school age. That's a lot of portfolios to put together. Even if I put the bulk of the work on the kids, even if I make it their project, it's a lot to kind of bring all together. And so for me, doing these extensive and elaborate portfolios would just be super overwhelming. My portfolios are very, very simple and basic. And I think if you want to be consistent in making one every year for your child, and helping them put one together, this is just a top requirement. It has to be very basic. If it's like this overwhelming project in your head, then it's going to be something that you probably just put off, and maybe you just wouldn't be consistent at it. And I honestly just think it's easier to look through when you have just a few things. Even if you show a parent or a grandparent, if there's so many pages, they just aren't gonna look through it. But if there's just a few and they're beautiful, colorful, and just kind of highlighting the best parts of their year, then it's something that they're probably more likely to just sift through. Now, onto the actual portfolio. The first thing I do at the beginning of the year or sometime in the year is buy a 1/2-inch notebook for each of my kids. I just order these on Amazon. And then when they get those, at some point in the year, I have them make their portfolio covers. So we just get out a white sheet of paper. A lot of times I will type in a Google Doc or something, their name and their grade. I only do this because it makes it bold and stand out. If they want to do their own name and their grade, then that's fine. I just tell them to make sure it's big and it's bold so that it's kind of in the center and we can see what it looks like. I want to mention also real quickly, I've said this in several other videos, but grade levels mean nothing to me personally other than to tell me when the kids are going to graduate. My kids are all over the place. We just move forward. Our philosophy is to just make progress every day. So in some areas, they move forward really fast. And in other areas, they need help. And we stop and linger and we figure things out and help them get through it and truly understand it. So grade levels to me really just help determine when they're going to graduate. When they're doing the front cover of their portfolios, I just tell them to make it a work of art. And some kids want to rush through it and then it just looks sloppy. I tell them to just take your time, make it colorful. Put pictures on the front of your portfolio that are things that we've studied through the year, maybe different books, draw the cover of a book that we read. Or if we did botany that year, show some of the plants you learned about. If we did astronomy, maybe just show some of the planets or whatever. Make it kind of a picture of what you did that year, of what they studied. Now, the first page that we put in our portfolios is something that's not required. It's not required by law in our state or anything, but to me, this is the defining part of the portfolio, and I think it's so important. It brings it all together. This is the cover page. I put this as the first page that you see when you open the cover of the portfolio. On this cover page, I start at the top by putting the student's name, the grade, the school year, and then the first paragraph is just a paragraph about them. And I will take the time to have my kids come over and I'll just say to them, hey, tell me about your year. Tell me about you. What's your favorite thing to do? What was your favorite book that you read this year? What do you want to be when you grow up? I just write a little paragraph about them. Underneath the paragraph about the student, I list out each subject that's required by law for them to show progress in. And then under each subject, I'll write just maybe 2 or 3 sentences. I'll put in the curriculum they used, for example, in English that year. What curriculum did they use? What papers did they write? What books did they read? I keep it really short. In math, I'll probably also put the curriculum, where they started, where they finished, maybe I'll put in, they learned double-digit multiplication this year or long division, any things that stand out that was kind of like a skill that they mastered. So for each subject, I put just a small statement just telling what they did that year. And then at the very end, I'll also put maybe some life skills that they learned that year, whether it be caring for a pet, cooking, folding their own laundry, doing their own laundry, whatever life skills they've learned, that's something nice to include. I'll put memory work that they've done, anything that they learned or studied in co-op. If they take music lessons, I'll put that on there. Anything else to just highlight or showcase your student. At the very end, I put a list of field trips. And I include everything, anything that was like a family trip. One thing about this cover page that I think is also just another key point is to keep it short. You'd be surprised when you start typing out just little snippets of what they've done for the year that this starts getting really long. And again, if you start drifting into that, it's going to become an overwhelming project for you. I try to keep my portfolio either 1 page or like a page and a half at the most. And I would say a page and a half would be for older kids, like in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. So just keeping that cover page really, really short helps. The next page that goes in our portfolio is our book list. This is something that I have my kids keep track of. They have checklists. I have a video that I've done on checklists. I can link that for you. They have just a slip cover that has their checklist on one side. On the back is their book list, and they're responsible for keeping track of all the books they read or the books that I read aloud to them throughout the year. So this is the second page that goes in our portfolio. The third thing that I put in our portfolio is our samples of work from each subject in the law. And for this, I also keep it very simple. I just put a beginning and an end of the year sample. Or if you want to do, you can do a beginning, middle, and end of year sample, because this is what will show progress. And like I mentioned before, I just thought of another reason that it's good to have a very minimal notebook. When your evaluator looks through it, you want them to just be able to easily find what they're looking for. And just having evaluated homeschool students myself, it is really nice when there's just a little bit. You're looking for progress. So if you see a beginning, middle, and end, it's just easy to see what they've done. If you have tons and tons of pages in there, it's overwhelming and you don't know what you're looking at. However, another thing that I would add in there, if there's any special projects they did, maybe in co-op they did something that was really neat, you can stick that in there. Any artwork they did that's just your favorite piece, that's something I would put in there. My kids have done, we've done like a model of the heart. They copied a model of the heart. They traced the United States. Things like that are just really neat pictures or neat things that you want to keep. That would be something nice to also put in. So those are the basic 3 parts to our portfolio: the cover page, the book list, and then the samples of work. Additionally, in the sides where there are pockets, sometimes I'll put pamphlets from field trips or performances that they've been to. Also maybe some artwork. So sometimes I'll just fill those slip covers with just anything else that stands out. One last thing I want to cover is a high school portfolio. So for elementary up through 8th grade, I did an individual portfolio for each of my kids. And then when our oldest son was getting into high school, I kind of just continued this pattern. After he graduated, I realized that it would just be more helpful to have one portfolio for all of high school. Because in high school, they just need to get those 15 credits. In high school, you are putting together a transcript. And so all of the credits on that transcript, some of them you may finish in a year, but I've had my kids that were working towards a credit on their transcript and it took them more than 1 year to do it. They, got through some of it in 9th grade, but then had to finish it maybe in 10th grade. And so you're kind of looking at those 15 credits as a conglomeration. And I just think it's a lot easier for high school to have one portfolio where you're showing samples of work from each credit on the transcript. I hope this answers some of your questions about putting together a homeschool portfolio. If you have more, I'll do my best to answer them. If you are an evaluator, would you please chime in? Let me know what things you would add to this conversation from your experience. If you're outside the state or outside of the country, if you have any ideas of what's required in your state, if you know something different, or any ideas about how you put together your portfolio, please comment below so that we can share this conversation with others. If you like this content, I want to send you over to the video I did last week on our beautiful home life, hands-on learning in our homeschool. Thanks for listening today. I do one video a week offering homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I'll see you next week.